from the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. At least 25 people have died after a car bomb exploded in a hotel in the Somali capital, Mogadishu. The death toll is likely to rise as a gun battle between soldiers and Al-Shabaab Islamist fighters continue to rage in a nearby building. According to the police, at least 80 people were injured in the attack by the group near the hotel. The place has been targeted by the Al-Shabaab group multiple times in the past, as it's favored by government officials.
While I was driving my auto rickshaw on this road, I saw many people flee, and the big blast occurred soon after that. I swear to Allah that I can express in words how anxious and shocked I was.
Sudanese President Omar Al-Bashir and the newly appointed Prime Minister are set to form a new government. Prime Minister Mohamed Tahir Ayala said the new government will address local issues and ensure that emergency materials like food, fuel and drugs reach the people. Al-Bashir dissolved his government last week and declared a state of emergency all over the country after 2 months of protests. The United Nations Security Council has rejected a draft resolution on Venezuela presented by the United States. The results of the vote was 9 in favor, 3 against and 3 abstentions. But the resolution fell because 2 permanent members, Russia and China, presented their veto. South Africa also voted against the resolution. The U.S. resolution called for immediate presidential elections in Venezuela and unrestricted access for the so-called aid. A second vote took place on a motion called for a peaceful political solution to the situation in Venezuela. The resolution also failed to pass, with 4 member states voting in favor, 7 against, and 4 abstaining. The draft resolution submitted by Russia backed the Montevideo mechanism to promote dialogue between the Bolivarian government and the opposition. And the Venezuelan ambassador to the UN, Samuel Moncada, condemned what he called a war against the Venezuelan people, prompted by the US and its allies.
The United States and Europe are not a world government governing trade throughout the world. And these illegal acts are causing suffering for our people. This Security Council must ensure that we comply with international law and that we combat these weapons of mass destruction being employed by the United States and the United Kingdom. Wars are not just conducted with bombs. Wars are also conducted with banks, and banks are being used to conduct war against our people.
Moncada also said the United States and the United Kingdom robbed $30 billion of Venezuela's funds.
We also denounced the fact that these 2 colonial powers, one of them still very strong, another one in decline, in the course of not even 2 weeks, 1 week, carried out the biggest robbery of our country. More than $30 billion was stolen from the Venezuelan people. And they want to justify this theft. If they really are interested in the humanitarian situation and the well-being of the Venezuelan people, the first thing that they should do is return what they stole. The United States and the United Kingdom were involved in theft and plunder, which cannot be hidden under the cloak of humanitarian aid. It's the same as the covetous colonialism of 2 centuries ago, but today it's disguised with a salvation ideology of messianic salvation of those in the Third World. We don't need these saviors, Mr. President.
And still in the UN, the United States prevented Venezuela from chairing the presidency of the UN Council of Disarmament in Geneva. During the session, the Venezuelan delegation denounced the constant aggressions from the US against its country and urged the Council to raise its voice against the threats prompted by the Donald Trump administration. The delegation has also insisted in the offer of dialogue made by the government of Nicolás Maduro.
Our delegation, as everyone here knows, has already participated in this forum with a peaceful and cooperative approach. We have never used to bring issues that are out of their agenda. We deplore, therefore, that the American delegation has brought matters of Venezuelan interest to this forum. Sultry has been the attitude of the government of Donald Trump and some of these satellite governments that have disrespected the most basic rules of diplomatic protocols.
Caribbean leaders will meet with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Washington to discuss the ongoing situation in Venezuela. It's part of CARICOM's mandate to continue dialogue with world leaders towards a peaceful resolution of the political issue. At the recently concluded CARICOM meeting in St. Kitts and Nevis, leaders maintained their non-interference and non-intervention policy.
But one may ask.
And a group of citizens have gathered in the Spanish capital, Madrid, to show their support to the Venezuelan government. People demonstrated to reject any interference attempts by the United States. They also called for the end of the economic blockade that the South American country is suffering. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign ministry spokesperson has called on Latin American countries to reflect on the U.S. intentions in Venezuela. Our correspondent in Moscow, Hansel Oro, has more.
Russia connotes the failure of the plans of the U.S. to break into Venezuela with the so-called humanitarian aid, which was justified the military intervention of the Bolivarian nation. However, on this day, the spokesman of the Russian Chancellery, Maria Bayarov, to alert the countries of Latin America to be able to analyze this political crisis by which is going through Venezuela from the external pressures emanated by the USA and others, also self-denominated Group of Lima. On the other hand, it's necessary to attend the last information confirmed by the Secretary of the Russian Security Council, Nikolai Patrushev, around these concentrations and the sending of special forces to Puerto Rico, but also the concentrations and increase of landings in Colombia. In this case, we must take reference that today might be Venezuela, but tomorrow might be countries of the domestic policy of the United States. It's also Cuba and Nicaragua and all of those governments that differ from the policy of the USA. Also, Russia calls to extend the dialogue between the opposition and the government of Nicolás Maduro.
That was our correspondent Hansel Oro from Russia. We have more stories coming up. We'll be back.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Human rights and social movements are denouncing increasing threats against environmental activists in Honduras. This comes after 2 indigenous leaders from the Tolupanes community were killed while defending their territory against a mining company. Other 12 activists have been detained, accused of provoking damages in another mining project.
In the community where I live, there is a Chilean company that wants to enter. We are resisting because the resources are ours. The water belongs to us, and the state is the violator of the rights. As Hondurans, the resources belong to us. They should rather reward people who defend the water and the forest.
And now environmental organizations are calling for national protests to reject the criminalization of land defenders.
Outside the court of Tegucigalpa, family members of 12 environmental activists accompanied their loved ones, who are on trial for opposing the building of a mine on their lands.
They are accused of bad crimes because their only crime was defending our water source.
Besides criminalizing the activists from Guapinol, just a few days ago, 2 indigenous leaders were murdered in the north of the country, where opposition to mining is also prevalent.
We can see that the criminals are immune from persecution in our country, especially when it's our criminal government. They order the killings of our friends, they repress our movements.
Environmental organizations are often taken aback by the killings and criminalization of activists. They have denounced a national emergency, in particular near regions where mining is taking place.
We want to support our friends. They are fighting an injustice. They are being criminalized for simply defending their water source.
My brother is Juan Antonio Lopez, one of those accused by the Los Pinares mining company, owned by the Facus family.
Social leaders are calling for national demonstrations to condemn the country's justice system. They say there have been no investigations into the killings and that environmental activists are usually persecuted. Activists want previous agreements to be respected, especially in indigenous areas.
Repression, criminalization, and persecution by international companies are out of control. The Honduran government is in their pockets. They are the ones calling the shots.
In less than 10 years, 140 environmental activists were killed in Honduras, and over 5,000 have been criminalized by state agencies.
The Mexican Congress has approved a project to put together a new National Guard. This guard will be comprised by police members and police personnel, military personnel, under civilian control. The lower house ratified the changes the Senate made to the bill last week. The law now has to be approved by 17 out of the 32 Mexican states. And the Mexican Navy has chased down a boat that was transporting over 700 kilos of cocaine and other drugs. The boat was seized off the coast of the southern state of Chiapas. The area is a major trafficking route for South African cartels seeking to reach the United States. Former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa has rejected the current president's allegations that he's orchestrating a political campaign against his administration. Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, reports.
In a televised message, Ecuador's President Lenin Moreno denied accusations made against him and his family. He said he didn't push out an empowerment in Spain and blamed the former President Rafael Correa for this smear campaign.
This is a strategy to undermine the country, conducted by former President Rafael Correa, who caused the biggest moral, economic, and social debacle that Ecuador has ever experienced.
The member of the National Assembly who made the accusations against Moreno and his relatives in Ecuador and Spain took to social media to condemn acts of violence outside the hotel in Guayaquil, where he was going to hold a press briefing.
Unfortunately, people apparently close to the government, bad people, blocked my way into the hotel. And as you can see, they were carrying stones and had their faces covered. The police did nothing. They attacked the media. We hold the government responsible for my security.
Moreno's presidential message has provoked mixed reactions. For Vigilio Hernandez of the Citizen Revolution movement, Moreno seems to be worried and is looking for a way to distract the attention of the public.
The president didn't answer the accusations. That's the main thing. He looked nervous and isolated. This is important because we see there is a political vacuum around the president and a complete absence of answers.
For his part, Rafael Correa insists the country will know the truth about President Moreno, and a number of political and social movements are warning that demands to revoke his presidential mandate will increase. Denise Herrera, Telesur Quito, Ecuador.
A new port terminal is opening in Costa Rica aimed at receiving larger ships crossing the expanded Panama Canal. The new port in the town of Limon will be able to receive vessels carrying up to 13,000 containers. This investment will likely turn Costa Rica into the Central American leader in port connectivity. The port cost about $1 billion and was built by a Dutch company. The amount of murders in the island of Barbados has risen by 200%. However, the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Erwin Boyce, has assured that the island is not in a crime crisis. The country faced a spike in the murder rate, having risen to 12 in the first 2 months of the year and over 15 shooting incidents. In the Galapagos Islands, 155 young giant turtles bred in captivity have been released into the wild. The animals are part of an ecological program to repopulate the island of Santa Fe. According to the director of the Galapagos National Park, all the young turtles have a microchip to follow their growth. And Rio's Sambadrome is almost ready for the beginning of the carnival. The Sambadrome is the stage for the competition between samba schools. They will need to show good choreography, atmosphere, organization, and singing during their performance. Shining costumes and music will engulf the city during the parade. Hundreds of thousands of tourists are expected to visit Rio on these days. Contemporary dance has taken over Costa Rica during the 7th edition of the International Cultural Festival Solodos. Duets and solos are showing their dancing moves. The festival promotes cultural cooperation between America and Europe, especially among young artists, and is also celebrated in Spain. The 7th edition of the Jazz Festival has kicked off in El Salvador. National and international artists from different venues will perform in this 7th consecutive edition of the festival. Jazz will be fusion with other music styles such as pop, hip-hop, and trova. 12 concerts will be held until the end of April. Peru continues to be hit by heavy rains as emergency has been declared in more than 10 regions across the country. The rainy season is expected to extend all through March.
The southern region of Peru has been hit by heavy rains for more than a month. The rainy season has also hit the coast and the northern highlands where the flow of the principal rivers has reached dangerous levels. In the Amazon region of Madre de Dios, more than 500 houses were flooded.
We can't even enter our land. We are really having a difficult time. We don't have water or rooms and our houses are flooded. We are thinking about tonight to find a place anywhere.
Authorities have reported that more than 1,500 hectares of crops have also been affected or lost this rainy season. 19 bridges have collapsed and more than 150 kilometers of highway were damaged. This has also caused a food shortage in markets and the rising price of basic products.
The prices are up the roof. They've gone up and there are no products. All the lettuces are dry. This is because no trucks are coming through.
The fruit is expensive. It costed 4 or 5 soles per kilo, and now it is 6 soles, almost 50% more.
Experts say that this is only the beginning of a rainy season that will become even stronger during the first weeks of March.
We will have more heavy rains in the north and probably in the center, including in Lima. In the south, we don't need heavy rains for disasters. This region is very vulnerable, and relatively small amounts of rain already caused serious damages.
So far, the government has declared 25 emergency situations in 10 regions to bring assistance to the affected people and to rebuild all of the damaged public infrastructure.
We're taking one last break. Stay with us.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
para mantenerme saludable. Yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Get Your Body. Tuesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The conflict in Kashmir has left hundreds of Pakistani passengers stranded at the border railway station of Attari in India. This is a consequence of the suspension of the Samjauta Express rail service by Pakistani authorities. The train runs between India and Pakistan. And this comes as Pakistan has promised to release a captured Indian pilot this Friday as a peace gesture towards India. And a group of Indian citizens have gathered at the border to welcome the pilot. They are waving Indian flags and beating drums to receive the pilot, who they consider a national hero.
We have been waiting here since 4:30 a.m. At first, we were told that he would be released at 5, but now the time has been pushed to 10. We will stand here until midnight if we have to. We will stand here the whole night. He is our hero.
Meanwhile, the Secretary General of the United Nations has urged India and Pakistan to avoid the increasing tensions between the two nations. Guterres has expressed deep concern about the situation and offered mediation in the conflict if both sides agree. He also called for urgent measures aimed at reducing tensions and maintaining peace and stability in the region. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has invited India for a dialogue.
There are humanitarian needs.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is to be indicted over corruption charges. The Attorney General wants to charge him in 3 cases of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. A hearing will take place after the election on April 9. The Prime Minister denies any wrongdoing, and his party describes the charges as political persecution. Netanyahu seeks a 4th term in office and has vowed not to resign over the allegations. And a United Nations probe has found evidence that Israel committed crimes against humanity in responding to the protests in the Gaza Strip throughout 2018. The investigation shows that Israeli forces targeted children, health workers, and journalists, in total killing 189 Palestinians and wounding more than 6,000. The independent panel said it had confidential information about those it believes to be responsible for the killings, including snipers and commanders.
The Commission has found reasonable grounds to believe that Israeli security forces committed serious violations of human rights and international humanitarian law. These violations clearly warrant criminal investigation and prosecution, and we call on Israel to conduct meaningful investigations into these serious violations and to provide timely justice and reparations for those killed and injured.
Belgium's government is determined to bring back Islamic State children from Syria despite a court ruling. An appeals court in Belgium ruled that the government isn't obliged to repatriate the 2 women and their 6 children from Syria. However, the government argues that the children can't be guilty of acts committed by their parents. The mothers were convicted last year in absentia of being members of the Islamic State group.
To go for the children.
Inspired by the Me Too movement, 2 actresses from France and Burkina Faso are calling for a similar movement in African cinema. They have used the slogan, "We are fearless," for their campaign. During a film festival, the actresses shared their experiences of sexual harassment during their professional careers. One said she was attacked and disfigured by a film director.
It's everywhere, everywhere, and not only actresses, directors, scriptwriters, technicians experience sexual harassment or even more, sexual assaults, rape. So it was time, and we have a hashtag, not afraid, because fear has to be on their other side now.
It happened on September 30, 2017, on a film set where I was an assistant. The director attacked me with a bottle of beer. He slashed my face.
And with that, we come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and 539 in Nigeria. And we're on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.